Stop jumping on me. Why are you doing that?
Having a bad dog day?
Rex, come back here.
From police dogs to pet dogs, from potty training to pet peeves, #1 best-selling author and 30-year canine trainer Andy Falco knows how to get to the meat of what's eating your dog. This is Falco Canine Dog Talk, the show that helps you and your dog create a relationship of love and respect.
What a good boy. Good heel, Rex. I love you, Rex.
And now here's your host, Andy Falco.
Hello, my friends. This is Andy over at the Train the Dog Trainer program, and I just want to come on and speak for both myself and Cam-Thompsen and let you know that on this particular episode, the tech gremlins got into our system somehow and lowered my volume level on my particular voice, and Cam's is actually normal. And so you're going to notice a little bit difference, and there's a very, very slight echo that you may hear. But I want to let you know that we are aware of it. We're trying to fix it. But I think that the content outweighed us trying to do this podcast again. I think there was way too many golden nuggets in there for you. And so I wanted to go ahead and publish this one. It's not that it's unlistenable. It's just that the levels are a little bit different. And, sometimes I know that can kind of throw things off just a bit. But just wanted to give you a heads up that we're aware of it and we're working on it. And we will hopefully have this fixed for future podcasts. But I want to make sure and publish this particular episode because I felt that it was particularly good. And so here you go, the episode 2 of Evaluations. All right. Hey, gang, this is Andy over at the Train the Dog Trainer podcast. I am here with my co-host,
Cameron-Thompsen.
I love the delay.
It's just mean.
We were just talking about what we're going to use for our opener, like our whatever thing we say when we're getting started, and
our shtick.
Yeah, we're going to be trying to figure out, but it's Cam's job to figure out what that's going to be.
Oh my goodness! Never mind that he just gave me the job, then took it back again. Now I have it once more.
Right.
Such fun. We'll talk about this later.
All right. All right, so we're going to be talking about what you do. What our last podcast had to do with, prior to the evaluation, the phone call and all the other stuff that goes along with it, how to use it as a marketing tool and that kind of stuff. And then today we're going to be talking about actually starting the evaluation. And there's a little bit there's probably a difference between what it is that I do on some level and as to what Cam. So I'm really interested to hear what you do with your evaluations in regard to your dogs, because you have both.
Likewise. Mm-hmm.
We have rescues and you have the pet dog training parts of it, right?
Correct. As a dog training company working with private owners, and then also the nonprofit rescue organization where we still provide interviews or evaluations for dogs that are being considered to surrender to us. So there is a whole process and protocol that involves that evaluation to determine whether or not the dog is a good candidate for us to work with and rehome, or if in fact we need to find another solution to counsel that family through.
Yep. And then I have it's kind of an evaluation. It's a meeting of potential clients. I know I can talk. Potential clients that have a need for a particular type of service dog. So we're going to talk about that just a little bit. Not too much, but I do have a funny story that I was just telling Cam about. And so we're going to go in a couple different directions. We'll try to keep it within an hour. It may be difficult.
Yes.
But
this is a good plan for us.
Yeah. But the one thing that I think is important, and Cam, you actually brought this up in one of our earlier conversations, in that this opportunity that you've created with someone in your, in the dog world, let's say that potentially wants to, do business with you. I think that one of the great things about having this time with them is for not only you to evaluate whether you want to do business with them as a human being, but whether or not that you, the trainer, are a fit with that potential customer. And I think that's pretty powerful, that what you were telling me about. How did that come about with you?
Yeah, I do remember we were talking about that in our last hour, and the fact that, most trainers are considering this assessment to be something of, a prove yourself to the potential client type scenario, and sell and enroll them and, show them what you can do. And I actually, put a little more emphasis on the trainer, the business owner, being in a place of analysis of whether or not this is an appropriate client match for them. And so it does go both ways. It's really important historically for us to keep in mind that, we won't be able to be the perfect right match for every single person that comes across our path, and that's okay. It isn't a statement that we're failures or we don't do an amazing job. It's just that old, adage of finding the right person for you, and that, certain things resonate with different people at different times. Sometimes you're just a kind of a link in the chain, as it were. You may share a conversation. They may gain something from content that you put out, but ultimately it might not be the best scenario to engage in a paid, enrollment program, service, training scenario with that individual for the long game. And then other times it's a perfect match and you can create magic together. So for me, it really evolved out of, like many things did, making mistakes and connecting with the wrong people, right? And being in a situation where I'm wanting to saw off, my arm, or maybe like stab myself in the eyeball because I feel like I can't make someone happy, or they're sucking my will to live because there's too many questions that I can't answer, support them through. And these are growth opportunities for us as human beings in any relationship context. But when you're a business owner, when you're a dog trainer, you really shouldn't have to suffer all the time. That's a sign you've got the wrong people, being screened and coming into a working relationship with you. And it should be the exception, not the rule. And the same struggle is happening on the client side. So it's really unfair to just say, I'll do my best and live through it. You need to be the bigger person and really make the call and be conscientious from the start through that evaluation process that, I can see that you guys are in this place in your training needs, or, these are the limitations of your lifestyle, your schedule, your finances, and what my company has to offer, the ways in which we need to work together. That's not a good match, but let me find somebody who might be a better fit for you. That would be my approach to everyone being happier and having more success for the long game. So yeah, as you make those, mistaken connections and they become learning opportunities, you do grow in your ability to be more discerning and to understand yourself better, your company policies. You get more clarity. These are just definitely business concepts that I think you and I will continue to explore and share more about, actually, as well as time goes on. But the evaluation is a time to be really honest with yourself.
You said it.
Be really honest with yourself about, what your skills and abilities and limitations are, who's your ideal client, and whether or not you really can provide what these people are looking for. And if they are going to be very honest about what they're going to put into the dynamic as well. It's got to be a partnership.
Yeah, and you just said it. And I think that what I was going to say is that you got to be you. You can't try to be Cesar Millan or Karen Pryor or anybody else that's in the dog world. You have to be you. You have to show your personality, because it's going to come out, right? And then it's going to sour, and then
eventually.
But I've seen it, unfortunately, far too often. Mostly, I think, more on the police dog side of things, is that these guys try to come on too strong, and then something ends up showing through later on. But you just gotta be yourself and not pretend, because it'll turn badly very quickly when they find out that you're not who you say you are. Yeah,
absolutely.
There was I had an experience in getting the peanut detection dog that I trained for. Kim and Kendall, Kim being the mom and Kendall being the daughter who has peanut allergies. They had tried to get this done with another trainer who told them that she could do this and that she's done it before and had all this experience. And it wasn't but maybe a couple of weeks into the training that the girl started just inviting herself over to their house and sleeping on their couch and doing some really bizarre behavior. And they found out that she had never done anything like it before. I mean, that's an extreme circumstance, but the reason I bring it up is because this actually happens in our world of dog training, that people can pretend to be something that they're not. If you're just getting started, that's why in the earlier podcast, I've told people to do training for free to begin with, to volunteer your time and get some experience. And that way you can later on say that you have experience, but don't ever get over your head, because they nearly sued her and had her arrested for some stuff that she had done. So
Gracious.
Just gosh darn it, just these people have enough to worry about with their dog that's biting people or something like that they don't need to they need to have to worry about whether the trainer that they selected is the right fit. And I know that took a whole dark turn. But
I mean, this is the reality for sure, and I think it extends into any other, working relationship in trying to suss out a professional.
Yep.
By any means, it's not limited to the industry, but it's certainly something that we fight against as ethical, business owners within the industry, because we know these things happen, and it's a human problem. It's a human behavior issue, obviously. And so the goal here is to train up great trainers who will set themselves apart by being consistent and honest and, have good values and, and will invest in their education and do it right. There's just no shortcuts. And I think that's kind of the message here is, be clear about whether or not you're just new and you're learning and you have limitations to what you can do, and be honest with people about that from the get-go. And if, like Andy said, even if it's an opportunity potentially for you to practice and get experience, a lot of dog owners will allow you to do that if they know that from the start. If you're in that situation of trying to get experience and exposure, and you want to offer yourself to somebody and go, I really feel like this is a problem that is not, I'm not really qualified to handle. It's new to me, but I'm willing to problem solve on the level that I can and do it for free, or, do it for cheap. If you're interested in, if you like working with me and you've indicated that you want to see how far I can take you, it would be a great experience for me as well. That's one thing. But, to say you can take a dog from A to Z and you've never done it before, or you really don't know how you're going to do it, that's definitely not something that should be going on at all. It's gonna swing around and bite you in the butt eventually.
Yep. And you can also have some mentors that you can lean on. I know that my trainers that I have that run the pet dog business now that I have, they will come to me, and whenever they get into a bind or get into a situation that they thought they could deal with, that maybe later on they thought, what, we haven't seen this before, can you help us? And so, and then I do. There's people that I've called and said, still to this time, and I'm here to tell you that no matter how long you've been in this business, there's going to be something that's going to come across your path that you're going to go, wow, I've never seen this before. Is this just, is this common that a dog does this thing and doesn't respond to the training as every other dog on the planet responds to this type of training? And there could be somebody that just has some a little bit more knowledge in that particular breed, perhaps, or something like that. So make sure you don't burn any bridges. I guess that's the message I'm trying to get there. That if you have somebody that has great knowledge, that you want to always keep them in your Rolodex, so you can go to them. I have a list here that should go without saying, but I don't want to go past it without making sure that this is understood, because I've had employees that I thought that just would understand these things, but they don't. And that is, you want to be on these evaluations. You want to be at your best. You don't want to be fake, but you also want to be at your best. You want your hair combed, clean clothes, which is shocking that I've seen some of my trainers that don't particularly have it. Maybe they don't have a washer. I'll wash their clothes for them. And if you have branded clothing, a shirt with a logo on it, that's always preferred. Be prepared with your proper equipment and make sure that it's in good condition, that it's not all, like a leash that's all frazzled and about ready to break.
Chewed through.
Chewed on it. You want to make sure and meet it at the appropriate location that, for whatever it is you want to do. Again, if you are if you're meeting somebody with a dog aggressive problem, probably the place not to meet is a dog park or at Petco or PetSmart, right? You want to meet someplace where you can actually talk and figure out what it is you're going to do. Don't be late. Don't be on your phone texting, as you're walking up to them, or as you're, introducing yourself, you're finishing in one of your texts. Again, these are things that I've actually seen. As a police officer, I remember responding to a call. It was an active call. It's called a 5150, which is a crazy person. And I arrived first. I was the follow-up to this call. And the primary officer, as he's walking towards this lady who has a shovel and she's breaking windows in her own house, he's texting on his phone as he's walking towards the call. So, it seems really stupid that I'm even bringing these things up, but I'm telling you, I have seen it even in some of what would be considered the most professional professions of stupidity. Make sure your vehicle is clean if they will see you in or near your vehicle. And that seems kind of strange maybe to some people, but that's one of those things that people will see. If you take care of your stuff, And one of the things is that you may take their dog and have it for a period of time, that if you don't take care of your car, are you, you know, this may be subconscious. They may be thinking, well, are they really going to take care of my dog? And so these are things that I would say are important to write down. If you're listening to this podcast, to maybe put that on the list. Maybe not for you, because maybe you do all these things, but you want to also make sure and be a good representative of your company if you have somebody that's going to be eventually working for you. Do you have any rules that I missed, or do you think my rules are stupid?
That was a trap. No, I think your rules are common sense. They're also going to be, there's going to be a scale, you know, within there that as a business owner, you can decide what is, you know, your priority, and to what degree is it important to you to, you know, for example, logos or, you know, business attire and these sorts of things. Like, to what degree is it important to you to convey that particular message in interacting with potential clients? The thing is that what Andy is articulating is you just can't go wrong. I mean, if you swing hard in the direction of being, you know, well put together and things are tidy and clean and you're clearly identifiable as the dog training company that your client is showing up to meet, it just isn't going to do anything to harm the potential in inspiring confidence in those people and enrolling them into the solutions that you have to offer them that day. So, you know, there's certainly going to be a spectrum of blending what we were talking about previously in terms of authenticity and like really showing up as who you are. You don't want to show up to an evaluation and have checked all of these boxes, but then all of your social media is the complete opposite, for example, right? So I would say there's sort of that middle ground of, you know, using common sense and understanding psychology, understanding the impression that you are making based on the choice that you do, you know, the choice that you choose for how you present yourself in that first encounter. And at the same time, you know, live in that space regularly so that the messaging is consistent throughout your experience, showing your work, meeting with that client in the future, etc. You know, I definitely, the other thing I wanted to add is I definitely look at these things about the client. So again, to sort of stand for my whole position of this evaluation is not just, I got to sell a board and train. It is you know, I wonder who this person is. I wonder what they're about. I wonder if I can help them. You know, I want to learn about them. I wonder if they're a good fit for me and I want to work with them. So you're looking at their car. You're looking at their clothes. You're looking at, you know, these items and sort of recognizing, right, and able to gather information, guys, on just what level of mess might exist in the situation you're endeavoring to enter into and the relationship that you might be, you know, entering into with these people to try to resolve the dog. Right. So that's kind of the one thing that came to mind for me in you talking through that list is, you know, consider it information gathering that you're able to do from the flip side. And then also, you mentioned that you assumed this was common sense for a lot of people in terms of staff and experiences training in the past and ran into the fact that it wasn't. As a CEO of your company, Dog Trainers, it is your job to articulate policies and procedures for the lowest common denominator. And you may not think you need to articulate these things, but it's really smart to do so and to make that, you know, a precedence that you establish right from the get-go when you hire someone into your company and not make any assumptions that they automatically will know. So I thought that was a really great list, you know, example that you're sharing with the audience for them to at least get started with. And then I would encourage them to think, like, sit with that, you know, and take some quiet time to really expand from there. What else in great detail is important to you that your team consider and follow through on and, you know, really live and represent your company with in terms of these details? Because you don't want to have to go back and say, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't articulate this in the beginning of your employment, but you haven't been consistent and it's giving us a bad name. And the person is like, hey, that was totally unfair. You know, I didn't know. Yep. So those are the main things that kind of stood out for me that I just wanted to share with the audience. And, you know, from there, they can really put their own flavor on to what degree they're concerned about sharing that stuff. I don't really do anything in terms of logoed clothing, and we have gear, we wear it when we do our community class, and I think we talked about this in part 1. It isn't the highest priority to me because I have found that my clientele, and again, this is unique in each demographic and to each trainer, I want my clientele to feel a little more familial, right? And so I found it's a little disarming, to just be in my natural put together state, which is, casual, but together, and to not have that sort of, degradation of, I'm the company and I'm the teacher and you're, the student.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, it really, you can't go wrong, right? To have those things established that you are clearly identifiable if you're meeting in a public place,
Yep.
that you wear those things when you're teaching a class so that you present authority in that scenario. There's a time and a place that I think it is 100% valuable regardless.
Yeah. We do a lot of group training where we have 10 to 15 people on a field. So
you don't want anybody guessing who's who. Yeah.
And then when that person with a red shirt, all of our shirts are red. That red shirt comes up, that we're there to help, especially because they get tunnel vision on their dogs when they're trying to eat the dog that's standing next to them.
Yeah.
So we found that it's a good way to, again, like you said, have authority, but also identify right away that that's us coming to help. So that's those are good, and I think beginning your procedure manual, even if you're a one-person show at this point,
start it now.
Starting your procedure manual, starting with your mission statement, and who it is you do these things for, and who you are as a company, and then these list of things that you want to be upheld. I think it's a good time to start. You don't want to start, later on when I got too many other things to do. Just start writing them down. That's why I love journaling. Journaling is a good way to get some of these things written down as you see them, and then you can add them to your procedure manual really quickly. Just have a Google Doc. I love Google Docs because you can work on them from anywhere. So those first few minutes, you brought that up, is when you're seeing that person, that customer, potential client coming up. Those first few moments are, I think, for me, are probably the key to my evaluation. It's for me, because I'm often trying to decide what class they're going to be in, whether they're going to be in a group class, or we're going to do a board and train, or we're going to do a private in their home, that it all starts at the moment I see them getting out of the car. And I know that seems kind of strange, but for me,
totally agree.
It is so important, because that's where you're going to see them at their normal. Because as they get closer to you, they start to act unnormal. Is that the right word? That's the way you say that. Abnormal.
They're definitely more self-conscious.
Yeah, they start acting. They start acting more friendly to their dog, or they start to act more strict to their dog. It's really strange what happens. But you'll see them smack their dog at the door of their car as they're trying to get out, or they open the door with no leash on the dog, and the dog starts running around the parking lot. I try to be in a position where I can see them before they know I'm watching them. Because I think I see a lot. How the dog responds to them, does the dog just ignore them completely? And that really begins to tell me about their relationship. Does the dog duck when they, maybe their hand kind of waves over their head? Does the dog kind of duck down that he's afraid he's going to get smacked in the head? All these things are really, really important. And like you said, what does their car look like? How are they dressed? Are they yelling at their kids in the car? Hey, stay here! Mom's only going to be a minute. Are they? Because I just shared with Cameron, I'm going to be doing a podcast called the Dad Podcast, because the reason they want me there is because I've mentioned before that I think dog training is very closely related to raising children, and so if I can see how they're treating their children and talking to their children, I could probably tell you what the problem is with their dog. So, what do you think of those first few moments? What are some of the things you look for?
I completely agree. It's super important to us too, and we're a home-based training company, so we have a property, right? Just to remind the audience or people who are brand new to listening to the podcast, my company is based out of my property, and so our clients are coming to our location, meaning we can literally walk out the front door of our home and meet them in the driveway and start that same assessment process. And so we make sure that we have a heads up and we know when they're arriving, and that we do exactly that. We head out, we watch that, exit from the car, their dog's behavior when they step out of the car. They might have a dog going ballistic, barking its head off. There can be all of the things that you articulated and then some, going on as that person arrives and gets themselves settled, and how they handle the dog pulling on the leash and being overly amped and aroused about the surroundings, and all the excuses they start to share with you, and the reasoning that they have to start sharing around why the dog's behavior is what it is. And it's all information for you to gather. It's all the beautiful, yummy, value of creating this meeting in the first place. And it really informs your ability to figure out what is the problem, what are they inspired to accomplish, and what is stopping them. You're able to assess that all in that moment, because you can see whether or not they set boundaries. You can see whether or not they have self-respect. You can see whether or not they're anxious or reactive themselves. You can learn all of these things in those first few moments, and then you can start to immediately seed, as I call it, into where the solutions exist and how to get there. So yeah, I think everything you said is pretty dang spot on. It's almost as if you know what you're doing. A little bit.
I've tried.
Just a little bit.
I've tried to pay attention. I watched
I'm feeling very validated.
I watched the Cesar Millan video before we started.
Right. A little bit of a pet whisperer action, and now you're done. You're golden.
Yeah. That's all I need.
Bring on the aggressive dogs.
I think we might have talked about this in the last podcast, but it was about inviting the entire family there, and I think that's one of the things I always seem to look at. It's not. I think I've said this before too, that it's not about the dog necessarily with me. I assume that the training of the dog part is going to be fairly easy, only because, like I said, I've been doing this for a really long time, and I've been able to solve most problems, not all, but solve most problems in regard to the dog, where my issues tend to more often be is in regard to the human beings. So I'm way more focused on what the humans are doing, it seems, than what the dog. And I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I think the dog is important, and watching what the dog's body language is telling you as they're approaching and that kind of stuff. But I'm often watching what their body language is based on what the human beings are doing.
Right.
I also want to see, though, back to my original point, is how the family and the people that show up are responding to one another, and what is happening, the communication between the husband and wife, and the looks on their face, the way they're walking. Are they, slouched and just degraded about having to be there because they haven't been able to solve their problem? Is the husband mad that he was, forced to do something else other than watch a football game on that particular day?
They're treating each other poorly, degrading one another. Yeah, so it's really important.
Yeah, if you just take the time, and again, I'm always referring back to some other podcast, I know, but if you had a chance, I think I did one on human behavior. You may want to go back and listen to that one, but I talk about how important it is for a dog trainer to really know about human behavior and the psychological personalities that people may or may not have. And so how do you feel about that part of it, about the human, I guess, what's what I'm looking for? The human picture that you're trying to, snapshots you're trying to take as they're approaching.
Yeah, it's extremely important. I mean, it is absolutely crucial to educate yourself about human behavior, because we already know, whether you're a good trainer or crappy trainer, honestly, we already know that dogs will completely change behavior in some cases within a matter of minutes of changing their environment and the person who's at the other end of the leash. So, if you can take a dog from an owner and create, what looks like magic in moments or days or weeks, and, but the dog's behavior at home is supposedly a catastrophe, then it stands to reason it's the human, element here that needs to be addressed as well. So, I totally agree. I'm looking at that information all the time, because it's a question of how coachable are these people. It would be one thing for me to take the dog and do the work and hand it back to them, and all it is a little robot, pet that they own that follows through and does everything I just told it to do. But that's not how it works. You have a living, breathing being, and they're looking for leadership and clarity and consistency. They're responding to energy in the environment and the presence or absence of structure and consistency. And so we have to have people who are going to receive the messaging that something about their process and behavior needs to change. Yeah. And when you have everyone together and you look at how they operate in their relationships with one another, you gain insight into how likely are those changes to be made. What sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Incline is ahead that is going to prevent them from doing that, easily and effectively. And, then being able to have, some clear and direct conversation about their willingness to start the work. So it is really, really important to see those things. It's important to understand if, a relationship, a marriage is falling apart and the dog is sort of caught in the middle. If there's been a long-standing history of lack of health, health and stability in their communication and lifestyle and things like this are all going on. It doesn't make sense to promise certain outcomes or to, start down a road of deep work to get this dog into a great place without addressing those things and ensuring that they understand their responsibilities and involvement in the equation. So you've got to be able to work with people. It's just absolutely essential. You can't get into dog training and, have the stance that it's because you're better with dogs and you don't like people. You're going to struggle massively. And the evaluation is a great time to honor that fact by pulling everyone, together and seeing where some of the breakdowns are in the human side of things. Yeah. And then getting to work on, what's possible if they're tuned in to what the dog actually needs and, go from there. So
some of this sounds very negative, I think, to people that may be listening. and I wanted to bring it all up because I think it's important. But I
don't know about negative. I think it's just, potentially a reality check for some.
Okay.
But I think actually it's probably more commonly accepted and embraced, really. It's just that, the question marks really become how? Like, how do you do that best, right? Yeah. Where do you go to really, educate yourself and sort things out as a trainer in the equation? And
but I wanted to be encouraging that if you just really focus on this human part and understanding human behavior and all the different personalities that you need to be aware of that people can be, blamers or analytical and all the other things that we pointed out in the earlier podcast, is that it'll become second nature and it becomes so much easier. Your life will become easier, I promise you, as a dog trainer. If you can get this human part under your belt to where it becomes just part of what it is you do, it makes the dog training so much easier and faster because that's always the struggle, right? You can, again, I can take a dog and have it heeling, sitting, downing, staying within an hour of the evaluation. That doesn't mean that it's trained. I can just get the dog to do it and show them how, but to get it to stick and to get it to be part of this dog's life and normal behavior, I have to train the human, right? And I have to be able to pass on what it is that I know to the human being. Because, again, there may be a trick that I do with me that, let's say, just with timing, but if I can't get that aspect of timing to become part of this person's life so that they know how to do it, then nothing will ever change. The dog will continue to be a pain in the butt to that human being. And so until you get this part down in regard to the human beings, it's going to be a struggle to have great success. Now, there are trainers that have a very narrow type of dog and human being that they will take, and they kick everybody else out, and they continue to have success because they take some dogs that just are within this very narrow, I don't know how else to put it, this narrow type, right?
Niche.
Yeah. And so these people can be successful. But if you want to really help the dogs that need help, that are struggling to stay alive because they're going to be euthanized because of their bad behavior, if you really want to make a difference, I think it's important that you get as well-rounded as you can in both human behavior and dog behavior. Is that a soapbox?
Maybe
a little bit.
You're fine.
So yeah, just don't be that person, right? I'm only going to take dogs that really don't need my help. And if you want to, that's fine. You can do that. But I mean, if you really want to make a difference in the dog world, then really become well-rounded in both human and dog behavior, because it'll serve you well. I promise you.
I mean, the flip side to that coin is, maybe in handling practice, based on life circumstances, you are having to set a boundary about the type of dog that you can, be hands-on about. But that doesn't mean you have to be limited in your information and how you disseminate that. So you could have a dog trainer who, you've got young kids in your home, you want to work from home, you want to work, part-time, your vision for your business is not this massive ordeal or endeavor, and you need to keep dogs that feel safe to you, around your family, etc. I totally can respect that. By the same token, don't stop learning, because you could be live streaming and educating and Skype sessions around the world at the same time, and really helping, as you're implying, people who really need the information on a broader spectrum with more challenging dogs. And so I think you can kind of divide that concept on a certain level into a few different categories, especially while somebody is. It's not that you can't make a difference, or that you can't share information that would be powerful to a lot of people who really need it, or volunteering your time even to other to nonprofit organizations. I love it when trainers, balance trainers in particular, come to me and say, I want to show up at your community class and give some time. Doesn't mean they're not making a huge impact with people who really need it, but those might not be the same people who are taking in really heavy duty dogs like we do. So. They just have experience with it, they understand it, and they can help people. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to speak to that side of things, that I think it's not black and white, I guess is my perspective on it. I think it's not black and white. I think you can find a happy medium, and in some cases people might not be able to put, themselves or others at risk on a certain level in terms of handling, but that doesn't mean they can't make a big difference.
I gotcha. You're good. I might keep you around.
Excellent. Thank God I contributed something of value.
And you're teaching me some new words. I'm writing them down so I can begin to use them in my everyday life. I'm such a simpleton.
I'll be using terms like 5150.
Yeah, 10-4, Roger Rocco.
That's what I learned from Andy. 5150.
5150. It's also the name of an album by now I just forgot the name of the band. One of my favorite bands of all time.
Okay. It'll come to you.
Van Halen, 5150.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I want to get to maybe in the next podcast about evaluations a little bit more of the questions and stuff. I think that because of our time, we're going to be stuck on a little bit about just getting there and what to look for in the beginning and that kind of stuff, because we got a couple different kind of evaluations we're doing. And I don't know this part of it. What is it that you look for in the dogs that you are trying to rescue, or decide whether they're going to become part of your rescue plan or whatever it is? I don't even know what to call it. What are some of the things that you do in that? I have no idea. Yeah.
This is a big one. I mean, in some respects, because we're really endeavoring as an organization to kind of change the way that this is done, where there are still many dog rescue groups that have a sort of blanketed no-kill mission, and who are thinking that every dog can and should be saved, and I fundamentally don't agree. So as part of upholding that and the experience that we have in seeing the impact on the community when dangerous dogs are quote-unquote saved and circulated through the system, one of our main sort of, rules of assessment with a dog is they cannot have aggression issues with both people and dogs. So if a dog checks both boxes, and not something we take someone else's word for, but something we ourselves evaluate and actively engage with the dog for a period of time to determine, okay? So we do the work. We don't make these decisions lightly. We don't make, a blanketed assessment of a dog in an environment that isn't conducive to success. Okay. We bring that dog into a training environment. We look at that dog when everything is stacked up perfectly for it. What do we get, right? And if that dog shows us that there is a potential, in spite of all of that, or a guarantee that we have aggression issues in both directions, we will not put that dog out into the community. So from an evaluation standpoint, that means that if we've got a dog coming to us, that has a laundry list backstory of, strikes against it, it's attacked animals, it's killed a cat, it's, attacks dogs, it's bitten a bunch of people, or it's mauled a kid, we're not going to accept that dog into our organization. We're not going to, consider that an appropriate investment of resources and time and energy to try to salvage that one dog, based on the fact that even if we put them in the best case scenario with a dog trainer, somebody super experienced who's adopting this dog, which People, I guarantee you, they just don't exist. These adopters do not exist. Right. That the dog is still a ticking time bomb. And my gauge for this is, if I ask myself, will I be surprised if someone calls me and tells me the dog got loose and bit a dog or mauled a dog, and it was a little girl's dog and he bit the kid? Would I be surprised? Mm-hmm. If I say to myself, no, I won't be surprised, I will not turn that dog out from my organization. So this, I think, is the heavy of the conversation, because nobody likes to talk about this part of things, and nobody likes to talk about this in an assessment with a potential training client. Yeah. But a lot of you are getting training clients that are holding a dog like this in their hands, and they're stuck and they're terrified, and they don't know what to do. And so, there is one thing to work with someone on the private side who's committed to their dog, who's committed to the liability. But it's a totally different scenario when that dog is passed around, has no allegiances, and has nobody committed to it. And as a rescue organization, your job is to find it an adopter who accepts the risk, who will follow through on everything to a T, and guarantee to keep the community and the dog safe. And it's just not something that's possible with the element of human, error that exists. So, in our rescue assessment, I say that's the biggest thing that, we're kind of looking for is, are we getting this call, or are we seeing this dog in because we're a last-ditch effort, because they can't get anyone else to take it, in spite of the fact that we have significant training ability, and it's one thing to do this work on the private side. We will not, take dogs in for rehoming on the rescue side that have this rap sheet. The other thing we're looking for would be related to health, probably. And we have a lot of experience, and we will do a lot of work with dogs that have, significant health history issues. But there's also, this applies to both the private training side as a trainer and as a rescue director. There's a lot of insight to be gained about behavior based on health. And so this is a factor that comes up for me in both cases during an evaluation. I want to know the health history of a dog. I want to know, what have they been eating? I want to know, what kind of things have taken place in terms of illness or injury and supplements or the lack of, and other types of treatments, flea treatments, vaccines, things like this. So I do take that into consideration on the rescue side as well, and it informs my process a bit as far as what will the dog require long term? Is it manageable for the average adopter to commit to? And how will that inform behavior potential going forward as well? Some cases, knowing I can improve it drastically based on changing the health, improving the nutrition, right?
I'm glad you said that, because that is so, it's missed so often, I think, when people are looking at how do we train this dog to not do A or B or C, that the health sometimes is overlooked. And it was something I discovered back in training police dogs, that some of the behavior or the change in their abilities and their effectiveness, we were always trying to fix it with training, and then we go, shoot, wait a minute, this dog has a broken tooth, or this dog has an infection of some sort.
Doesn't feel good, yeah.
Or a hip problem, or a back problem, or a tail problem. So I'm so happy that you brought that up. That you know what you're talking about.
You're so welcome. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased that I could bring some value today.
Yes.
Yeah, it is really important. And all of my colleagues are doing really amazing work. We all know this to be a really key ingredient, pun intended, to, how we put the full picture together of behavior mod or, rehabilitation, as it were. And it's something that dog owners really need to be empowered to understand, that they can have a really important impact on their dog's performance and longevity. Nutrition, it can't be understated how important it is. This is true for us too. I mean, so many of these things, like you were saying, that correlate to parenting, they correlate to process. It's really just about process and having a healthy process for your own physical health and well-being, how you take care of yourself. There's just no shortcuts to doing things right. So I love talking about the nutrition aspect of it, and it's definitely a key component to how we look at dogs coming into the rescue program, because most people who are looking to adopt a dog, even though they're super excited that the dog has training on board, they're still a little bit delusional about that they want a fluffy buddy, to just, cuddle and kiss and hug and enjoy and have running around in the backyard and playing with their kids. And Not the majority of people are looking to have an expensive medical case that has all these behavioral limitations and, can't do life with them. These dogs they're special cases. They take special people to lean into what's necessary to make that work. And while they do exist, and we can make those matches very successfully at times, it's just not the majority. So do you spend all of this energy and investment, trying to salvage the one while 8 others don't get a chance? Or do you focus on the 8 that have a much greater potential to drop into family life and transition without tremendous stress and live healthy and hearty for, the next 10 years? Yeah. I mean, you have to. You really have to.
Yeah, and then also some people are shocked that the veterinarians don't know that much about nutrition.
Yeah. That's another topic for
my vet told me to feed my dog 6 cups of this. What? Wait a minute. This dog its stomach is barely scraping the floor. It gets hung up on trying to go up a curb. We had an overweight Labrador Retriever come to us for bed bug detection dog training the other day. We just started training, and he's overweight. And they go, well, we tried everything and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what kind of food do you feed them? And it was, I'm not going to say the name of the food because it was, a low-grade food they got at Costco. And I said, well, how about feeding the dog a really, a good protein diet that instead of something the dog's going to store for fat? Because no matter what you feed him, how little you feed him, he's still going to store it for fat. And that's probably what's happening. So, and they were somehow told that the dog was a vegetarian. And so that was
I've been hearing this one a lot.
I know.
I've been hearing this one a lot.
Are not vegetarians.
Vegetarian diets and hydrolyzed diets. And oh my goodness, these dogs are getting sick. They're not living. They're having allergy issues. It's heartbreaking to watch. It really is. A lot of skin problems start showing up. Yeah. We're going to have to get into this conversation on a bigger level for sure. It is its own entity.
And I tried to ask them,
get me fired up.
Yeah. I said, who told you that? And they go, we don't know. We were just told the dog could not have any protein. It's a vegetarian dog. And I go, says who? And we found out that nobody ever said that. That somehow anyway. And so you're right. But no, the dogs, unless it's a really special circumstance, need a good high quality protein. So just shut up.
Well, good thing they came across your path. They'll be headed in a better direction now.
Alrighty then. All right. So one of the evaluations that I do that's maybe slightly different is that I get people that come to us that want a dog for service, either protection or, like I told you, we trained a dog for peanut detection for people. An autistic child. We were actually on Animal Planet. They did a special on a dog we trained for a child that's called a loper. The child would escape wherever they're at, their home or at school, and he would just run. From the time he could walk. He was an escape artist, and he would take off, and so we trained the dog to track him down. And the dog was successful on at least 4 occasions that I remember tracking him down and finding him because they couldn't find him. And so we get these dogs. And so our job in that case is to interview just the people because they don't have a dog yet, and our job is to find a dog for them. And I would say that probably everything that we mentioned earlier in this podcast is important. In regard to understanding who the people are, their personalities, are they going to commit the time? Because when you have a service dog, you got to make sure they understand that this is a commitment, that they have to maintain the dog's behaviors, that they have to make sure that this dog is obedient beyond any other dog because they're taken into restaurants, they're taken on the buses, on trains, on planes. And I think that the most important thing is that you make sure that these people are committed. And I've told a few people that have come to me for a service dog that it's probably not for them because they're just by talking to them, I can tell they're too busy, not interested in knowing all the ins and outs on how to maintain the behavior with their dog. But you have to know human behavior if you're going to have any success.
I was going to say, can you think of articulating a few of those examples of how you can tell whether or not somebody is really going to show up and do what they say they're going to do? Because it's very easy for a prospective client to stand there and tell you what they think you want to hear, and they're excited or they've enrolled themselves in the moment, but they don't know what it is that is going to be, required for the long haul. So what are some of the sort of backdoor insights that you're able to glean when you are talking with someone? What is it about that conversation or, specific questions that you ask that you're paying attention to that tells you they're too busy or they've made, certain decisions too many times in the past that would indicate that maybe there's a pattern of behavior that could be a problem. Can you think of a few of those things that might help people just to get even a little more specific?
I wish I had the exact questions that I ask, because most of it I just get a feel for the conversation I'm having. So
sure. I get that.
I was a detective, and maybe that's where that comes from over at Anaheim Police Department. So I've learned how to ask the right questions to get those things based on who I'm talking to. They're not always the same. But I think really it's the looks on their face and their body language when I begin to tell them what the commitment looks like. That we should probably see them on a monthly basis, particularly in the early stages of putting them together, if not more, to make sure that the behaviors are being maintained properly. And sometimes they go, really, I have to, is this going to be every month? So you get the response back, and you can see in the way that they're asking it that this may not be something that they're ready for. I ask a little bit of, what their week looks like in regard to work and that kind of stuff. What it is they do on the weekend, and just really get a feel for who they are. And then I flat out just ask them sometimes, is this something that you are aware of, that this is something that has to be maintained, especially in something like a peanut detection dog, because it is like a narcotics dog where we train almost not daily, but a few times a week. And then we evaluate the dog once a month. Every narcotics dog, bomb dog that I've trained, we see each other once a month for the working life of the dog. And so something that like that takes a lot of commitment. Now, a service dog or a therapy dog in that nature doesn't need to be seen as much for that, but at least in the early stages, you want to make sure that they have a schedule that will allow them to do that kind of thing. If they've got soccer and they've got, parent meetings, and they got, a lot of after work curriculum or extracurricular activities that they do, and that kind of stuff, then we begin to say, is this something that you're going to be able to be committed to? And then the liabilities, and I talk about liability. There's a lot of liability that taking the dog into these public places that will cause you grief if you don't have a firm handle on your dog's obedience and, what is necessary to maintain that when you're taking the dog into a hospital, for instance, and that kind of stuff. So I think it's more in the conversation. I wish I did now have some questions, because that was a really good question you asked me. But maybe in the next podcast I'll try to come up with some. But I think for me, just only because of the time I've been doing it, I know how to steer a conversation to really hone in on whether they can do it or not. And they sometimes will, in the end, make that decision and not give me the 50% down that it costs to start finding a dog for them.
It is a bit of an intuitive process for sure. And that's sort of the art, I think of what's involved in this line of work. There's sort of all these, technical, mechanical, dynamical pieces, but then there also is very much an intuitive art. And it's why some people are really, really good at it, and others, struggle more, can't, don't produce the same results. So, I think people can appreciate that.
I think some of it came from the early mistakes, and we've talked about this too. That is that in the beginning I thought I had to take on everybody. Like they came, we want a dog that will save my child from the world. Okay, I can train that dog. And then finding out that they weren't committed, or that just really wasn't possible with this human and dog combination, and going, wow, I shouldn't have done that. And so I clearly made that mistake early. Not very often. I usually learn fairly fast from my mistakes, fairly fast. But you can make those mistakes a couple times and realize that it's not going to work, and go, what did I miss? And I quite often sit down and just try to figure out what is it that I missed, that I could have seen this coming. And I will actually come up with some really good answers sometimes, because I go, when they answered me with that, or when they said this, or when I could see that they were not showing up on time, that they weren't committed. And those are little things that, you will begin to understand that early on. Everybody's really excited, right? Everybody's really excited to get started, but does it maintain itself? Do you see that begins to wane, and they begin to show up late? We see that with our pet dog people in our group training, right? You have some people that are there early, right? And they're ready to go, and they got their bags, they got their bowls, they got their water bottles all ready to go, and they're early and they're ready to go. You'll see that on day one, and then day two, you'll see 2 or 3 people that oh, I was running a little late, I got busy, and then pretty soon you don't see them. So you can see that pattern begin, and you know that you're going to have a failure on your hands. So
yeah, I feel like this is a great, it's almost a great, way to wrap up the conversation. It's just to sort of bring around that focus that the evaluation, your assessment, your interview is your first opportunity to put a pin marker in the relationship dynamic so that later you can go back and see and learn and have insight and self-awareness around things that may have been messaging that was missed that can inform your process going forward. That we're really wanting you to see the value of this and actually how important it is, even if it turns out to be a dynamic in a relationship that doesn't feel amazing all the way through.
Yeah.
Stay present and pay attention to that experience in the beginning and that evaluation and assessment, because there's messaging there for you to go back and fish around how you showed up, how they showed up, what your enrollment process is, your conversations around how you can help them and what it is that you do. It's all things that you can learn from in hindsight based on, being able to move forward in that relationship dynamic and have it, sink or swim. So I love that.
Yeah. Give them things to do beforehand too. Maybe give them some, I need you to do these things before I see you.
We do that too, actually. I'm glad you brought that up. Heck yeah. It tells you a lot about where somebody's at.
Yeah.
Whether or not they do it.
Yeah. Works for employees too. Fail fast is what they say. Fail fast. And this isn't a fit. And see ya. No. Wow, this has been good. I'm learning so much.
Juicy one. We're kind of good at this. I love it.
We didn't even get to the evaluation.
That's okay. I mean, shoot. It just means we have less work to do. We get to just show up again and have another conversation and just keep this going. There's a lot to it. It's amazing how much when you've been doing it for a long time too, there's a lot that we don't think about, I think, as time has gone on,
I know.
that clearly is relevant for somebody who's building some perspective around how to do it and why to do it and what kind of information they can gather.
Isn't that funny? And I've talked about this to anybody that'll listen, and that is you learn way more when you begin to teach. Right? I learned enough to get started as a student, but I didn't really start learning until I started training dogs and human beings. That's where I began to learn my craft. And
I totally agree.
And speaking it out on a podcast is just another one of those tools that just like, wow, when you asked me that question about one of the questions, I was going, shoot,
I don't know.
No.
Now you're going to pay attention.
I've been doing it so long now, I can't even remember. And I know I have questions on our form that I asked.
We'll have a whole other podcast where Andy comes back and goes, guys, I got it. This is what I did.
Oh, yeah, there was that one question.
I recorded it so I could remember.
You stumped me. I was like, shoot, I don't know.
I tried to set you up to sound really brilliant, but all good. So much helpful information.
Yes.
It's awesome. Yeah. See one, do one, teach one is one of my favorite, sort of principles of how I train here in my company and how I want my trainers to operate. And, I always see them fully, sort of own and appreciate a concept, a principle, a process when they have to turn around and explain it to somebody else. Yeah. So I totally agree with you. Being in the teaching chair and the coaching position after all this time has been more valuable than any student experience for me too.
Awesome. We didn't send anybody to anything with like any links or URLs or nothing. We didn't.
Just because you're supposed to do it now. You didn't know that? Now it is time. Tell the people how they can engage with us further.
Our Facebook page, Falco Canine Academy, or the Train the Dog Trainer on Facebook. And then you got home2canine.com, right?
Yep, home2canine.com is where you'll find our training company, or you can hang with us on Facebook. Facebook.com/home2canine. It's just Home2Canine Dog Training there. We do more free Q&A. Got more opportunities to get support through both of our organizations, and we can't wait to hear your feedback.
All right. Is it / you said? Or backslash?
I don't know. Back, forward, try
I don't know which is which. That's what I was going to ask you.
Question it. I think it's backslash.
Is the forward when the top is forward or when the bottom is forward?
Good question.
You're supposed to make me smarter, Cam.
Oh, shucks. I tried so many ways today, and then I stopped. I stopped trying. So
You're exhausted. Your nose is bleeding.
I'll look it up. I'll get back to you.
All right. How are we going to close out our podcast? It's up to you.
Make good choices, people. I refuse to be put on the spot. Guys, we don't have it yet. We just don't. At some point, there'll be a ditty, there'll be fireworks or something. It'll be magnificent, but we don't have it yet. So all this yummy stuff that we just gave you, it's enough. They're fine. They'll accept it. It's enough.
Yeah, okay. I'm exhausted.
Thanks for listening.
All right. Make good decisions.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Falco Canine Dog Talk, the show that helps you and your dog create a relationship of love and respect. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address at www.falcocanineacademy.com and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Falco Canine Academy. Follow us on twitter.com/Falco Canine Academy and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Falco143. And remember, if you've got questions for Andy, call the K9 line at 714-798-9961. That's 714-798-9961. This is a production of Falco Enterprises Incorporated. All rights reserved.